If you want financial freedom, time freedom, and want to leave a legacy for generations to come, you probably have heard real estate investing is the place to do that. How do you get started? What do you have to do? When's the right time? If you are looking for those answers, you've come to the right place. My name is Kyle Stanley, and this is Fearless Flipping. My mission is to help you learn this business and conquer real estate investing. Welcome into Fearless Flipping. Before we get to this week's guest, I would love if you would just go down to wherever you're watching this or listening to this, leave a comment, leave a review, let us know about what deals you've got going on right now that you're learning about. Maybe you can share some situations that will help all of our listeners and viewers as well. So we would love to hear some of your deals and what's going on in your real estate investing business. Now to this week's guest, Ryan Wright. He's out of Utah, and he has a little secret here. Landlords, how would you like to have tenants that give you zero issues and you have them for 5+ years and you're cash flowing upwards of $400 to $500 at least per month? Dumb question, right? Yeah. Well, Ryan has found out exactly how to do that. He has a formula and a solution for you to help you do the exact same thing. So without further ado, let's check it out with Ryan Wright. Hey, welcome into Fearless Flipping. We got a special guest here coming from Salt Lake City, Utah, Ryan Wright, who is the author of, I had to write this down because it is a long one, How to Get More Money Than You Can Ever Handle. And also Do Hard Money is the name of his business. He's also got a podcast, Income Hacker. So I'm excited to have you on the show, Ryan. Welcome in.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. Well, hey, as always, got to ask, what is your most interesting, weirdest real estate investing story? You've been in it for 20 years, so I'm sure you've got something exciting for our viewers.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go way back in the filing cabinet and look at my first deal. I just believe like your first deal is the most epic. Whether you make money, lose money, it's like your college course on real estate investing.
Right.
And, my dad was a real estate investor, but he was a chiropractor. And he thought he started making some decent money and said, I've got to invest in real estate. So he'd buy, plexes and that type of stuff. So I followed that example and said, I'm going to buy a duplex. And I thought, I'm going to convert this duplex into a threeplex because it was a side-by-side, but this one had a basement. So the one side was bigger. It never really even dawned on me. So I bought the property. I saved some money, started doing all the work myself. And I had done some work except for doing like texturing and that stuff, because that's just horrible. That's like an art. You have to be an artist to do a good job at that. But what I did is I converted that downstairs into another apartment. So I took the stairs out, and that was easy. And then I filled the hole back in, and but there was something I didn't realize, and it's this little thing called zoning code. And I had no idea that you couldn't just turn a duplex into a threeplex without talking to somebody, right? I'm 21 years old. I'm just going at it, doing whatever I can, and thought it was a great idea. And it was a great idea. So then the city got involved and said, no, you can't do that. And so then I said, well, then I'll put the stairs back in. And I'll put a little mother-in-law downstairs and leave the kitchen that I just spent all this money putting in. And so, then I tried to put stairs in myself. The whole rise over run thing is such a problem. And so we ended up making it work. So it technically was a mother-in-law apartment downstairs that had a separate entrance. And so I was able to accomplish my end goal. The other thing I didn't really realize or think about much was parking. The off-street parking, it only had 2 covered stalls. Which was okay. And then you could kind of park behind the one, but then when you turn it into a threeplex and there's only 2 stalls and then parking behind each other, that creates a whole thing. And then there's off-street parking. And so, that was like a college education on real estate investing of, wow, you got to make sure you're in, the city's not going to come after you. Wow, parking's a big deal. If you don't have parking, that's a huge problem. And this was all on a property. I think one of the biggest things with it though is I was all in. I already bought the place. I didn't have a choice. I was trying to find a way to make it work because we were, there wasn't an out, right? The out was, I got to figure out how to make it work. And I'm not suggesting people go get themselves in stupid situations. Learn from my mistakes. Parking's a big deal. Make sure you have it. If you're going to do a conversion, make sure you can actually legally do it. Those types of things. But in the end, once you're in it, and you're committed, you find ways to make some things happen. So I would say my parking and and zoning disaster is probably one of the most epic. Other than I've also bought some houses at auction. That's always epic as well. So maybe we need to talk about that too.
Yeah, well, we can. I just love though that, you talk about commitment and you talk about you were all in. And I think that's the big difference there with people. I mean, two different things here. The first is people that stick with this business and no matter what happens, they know they're going to make it work. And then the people that even just never start in this business because they're wondering, well, what if I have those issues? And they look at what you see as road bumps, they see as that brick wall of why they're never going to start. So kudos to you for actually being all in and going for it. And so I want to just kind of back up the clock here a little bit. And I always love to get to know and have our listeners and viewers get to know more about you. You started this, you kind of hinted there at 20, 21 years old, and here you are 20 years later. Sorry, I just did the math for people. They know how old you are. Here you are 20 years later doing amazing things that we're going to get to. You're an author. You've got your own business where you're helping people to get money. You've been a successful investor for 20 years, but just kind of take us back to, 20-year-old, maybe even 19-year-old Ryan, and where in the world did this desire for real estate start?
I really, one of the great things about doing the podcast and those things is it makes you a little introspective of like, where does it start when you get, you're live on air and somebody's asking you these questions. And I got to give a shout out to my mom and dad. I mean, in the end, my dad was an entrepreneur. He was a chiropractor, but he was an entrepreneur. My mom and my dad taught me financial principles. I didn't realize it at the time that they were teaching me financial principles. I thought that was a way every kid kind of grew up. Like, you've got to help pay for part of your vacation. You've got to save some money. You've got to invest some money. You've got to, do work on rental properties, like buying rental properties, which is kind of one of the things we did. And it wasn't like he was buying properties every day and flipping, 4 properties a year like you're doing, that type of stuff. He just bought a house or he bought a Plex, fixed it up. And usually I fixed it up either with my grandpa or by myself. And then he rented it out and he tried to do value add. We turned a 4-plex into a 6-plex. We, had a duplex that we remodeled and got rents up and that type of stuff. And then he'd pay it down or pay it off and then buy another one a few years later. And so it's kind of the slow road to wealth. But the big part of that is it is wealth. It generates
Absolutely.
wealth. And so you just kind of do some of those things along the way. So I'd credit a lot of that. Like, I remember before it was even popular, like Rich Dad, Poor Dad, the book, my mom was reading it and teaching me the principles of that, late at night and at the dinner table. So I was actually a speaker at a conference where they had doctors, a bunch of dentists, and they were teaching really basic, what I would consider basic financial principles. And one of the dentists, this is a guy with advanced degrees and all this stuff, is like, doesn't this information just blow you away? And I said, not really. Like, I learned this when I was 8.
Right.
And he's like, are you kidding me? Like, who teaches that? So I was lucky. Fortunately, though, in this day and age, people can go to a podcast like yours and learn those same principles that my mom and dad taught me when I was young. The information, the dissemination of information, so available right now. You can learn those same lessons. So although I may be a few years more experienced, I won't say ahead, maybe just more experience, you can catch up. Like, it's the learning curve can be really shallow, if you take the time to learn it.
Absolutely. Well, I think it's a big thing that Gary Vee says, there's no such thing as being too old to start your new life or your new business. And my dad was a great example of that. He was 44 years old when he started his own business, and it was what he worked on until 2 years before he passed. And so, I mean, you can start something no matter where you're at in life. You just were one of the lucky ones and started very early. So now you have this opportunity at a young age to not only be successful, but to pass that on and to teach other people no matter the age. So, I guess before we get into that and how you're helping others, kind of give us a background of you've kind of hinted towards the rentals, you've hinted towards some other investing. What's been your main way or your passion of investing? What's your main exit strategy there?
Yeah. So unfortunately, I'm like a dabbler. I like to do a little bit of everything. I'm kind of like the handyman that's like not great at anything, but likes to do everything. So
Okay.
I get bored all the time. So I do wholesales, I do retails, I have rentals, I have commercial, I do lending, I have software. I 4 different softwares that I've built with my team and, that type of stuff. So I kind of like to do a little bit of everything. I kind of get passionate about something and go make it happen, and then get bored and try and do something else. So a little bit of everything. But one of the things that I think I overlook quite frequently is long-term tenants. I've done really well about keeping my tenants. My average tenant stays about 5 years. Yes, I said
Wow.
that right. 5 years
Wow.
in a property. And so I was sitting back doing a net worth analysis and looking at my cash flows and those things. And one of the things dawned on me is like, this thing's on autopilot. And I don't think most people know how to manage properties the way I manage properties. I haven't even driven by or looked at some of my properties for over a decade in
Wow.
some cases. And because it's like, we've got it dialed in. So I would say that would be one of the things that I've really got dialed in that I take for granted, because I put these systems in place years ago, and they just work like mad.
Can you give us a little bit of the secret sauce there, what those systems look like?
Yeah. So, I mean, one of the things is I don't invest in neighborhoods that are like D quality neighborhoods.
Mm.
So, for me, if I wouldn't let my wife walk alone at the street at night down the street, then I won't invest there. So that doesn't mean it's got to be the greatest neighborhood, you know what I mean? But it's got to be somewhere that I would feel safe with her walking down, at 10 o'clock at night when it's dark, and not be worried about her. So that's kind of my litmus test for that. First off, and I found with some of the D class rentals, or even some of the C class rentals, you're going to get more cash flow usually, but they're so management intense. You're replacing stuff all the time. You're turning through tenants, and one of the big costs most people don't realize is turnover. The turnover cost, the lost rent, and the rent ready is so expensive. So what I did one day is I looked at it and said, well, man, if I'm losing tenants every 6 months or every year, I'm going to go a month or two without rent. And then, oh my goodness, I've got to do the carpets or do some paint or whatever the case is. So I started looking at it. I'm like, well, man, if I lose a couple months of rent and have to do some work, I'm out like $2,000 or $3,000 every time I
Mhm.
have a rent turnover. So I, said, well, man, how much is that costing me a month? Oh, it's cost me $200 a month, which most people weren't taking off their cash flow. And I came up with this idea, and I'm just like, and I had a mentor that also helped me as well. And I said, what if I rent properties for $50 or $100 less than what the rents are, but I get long-term tenants? So
Mm.
we advertise long-term rentals, 2 years plus. We want people that want to stay in the house forever. If you don't want to stay in the house forever, we don't want to rent to you. And so we tell that up front. But what we do is we undervalue the rent. So if the rent is $1,000, we're going to market it for, in this market, we're going to market it for 950 or maybe 900. But I'm going to keep that tenant for 5 years. And so I'm not going to deal with anything. So what I'm going to do is discount the rent $50 to $100. However, I'm also going to ask the homeowner or the tenant to do some of the minor repairs for me, so I'm not getting phone calls. So basically what happens is I reduce my rent $50 to $100. I've gotten a long-term tenant that's going to stay 2 years, and lots of times they stay even longer than that. And in addition to that, I'm asking them to take care of the minor repairs. So on my application, if you don't have a toolbox and you don't have a lawnmower, I'm not going to rent to you. Like, that's a
Mm.
criteria. But because I under rent the property, I'm the belle of the ball. I can choose any date I want, right? When I put a property up, I put a property up yesterday. We had 5 showings yesterday, and I've already got 2 applications coming in. But guess what? We're not even going to decide who we're going to rent to for a few more days, because I want to give it a week so then I have 20 applications, and then I can go through, and it's like a job interview. Why should I give you the keys to the kingdom? And so that's some of the things that we're doing to offset that. And then we have them pay a deductible if we do a repair, and we treat them like homeowners. We try and treat them like big people. We get the best tenants in there to begin with, and it works like a charm.
So I heard 4 main things there that I just want to recap. The first thing that you said is safe neighborhoods. If your wife is not going to be safe at night there, then you don't want to own it. The second one is you're looking for someone that's looking for this house to be a forever house, or at least a long-term one too, because you've got that 2-year lease. I think that's awesome. I'm all about giving value, and I think that the best way to give value when it comes to renters is definitely reducing the rent and staying in that high quality type of neighborhood. So that's the third thing you said, was reducing the rent. But the fourth one, which I want to ask a backup question on this, is those minor repairs or doing those things themselves. I'm assuming those are kind of like the toilet gets plugged, the window is a little janky, whatever that is. They're in charge of that. How do they respond? How are you convincing them that that's their deal versus a normal long-term tenant where, hey, if you have any issues, call me and I'll have the handyman come out being the
Yeah.
landlord?
Yeah, that's so expensive to have the handyman go out there to use a plunger because somebody put a tampon in the toilet. You know what I mean? So for me, it's like I don't want to rent to you. So because I'm reducing my rent by $50 to $100 and I get multiple applications, I'm literally sitting down and saying, "Hey, we are not the Marriott. This is not pick up the phone, hit zero, and somebody comes running. This is not how it goes." So you noticed and you know this is well priced. And the reason that it's well priced is because we ask you to help absorb some of the cost of that. And all we ask you to do is treat the house like it's your own.
Hmm.
So if it's your own house, you're going to use a plunger when something happens, and I expect you to do that. And so I expect you to do minor stuff. Now, if the house is on fire or the plumbing, bursts and that type of stuff, no. Here's my emergency list of people you're going to call. However, when you call one of my emergency people, there is a deductible, and that deductible is $50. And the reason I charge that is because I'm saving you on rent $100 a month. So if you can help on some of that, I can save you money. And the tenants that I'm renting to, because I require they have a toolbox and they have a lawnmower and those types of things, most of them have been homeowners and don't want to be homeowners before, or they're somewhat handy. And so if not, I don't want to rent to you. So if you've got the Marriott drama queen that wants to rent from me, I say, no, this is not a good fit because no one's going to come running when you hit zero on the phone. And I'm not even going to pick up my phone, to be honest with you. So you're going to either fix it yourself or you're going to call somebody on my list and you're going to pay them a $50 deductible. In lieu of that, I'm going to discount your rent. You're going to save $1,200 this year, and you might have to call one of my guys a time or two. But if you can fix it yourself, you save the $50. And smart people with a good IQ are like, heck yeah, done deal. And the other thing we promise them is we won't raise the rent in the second year. So we actually don't give them a 2-year rental agreement. We give them a 1 year, but we can cancel it at any time if we need to. And they can as well. But if they cancel it, then they don't get what we call a performance bonus. And so we do a performance bonus to get them to take even better care. I have tenants that have like added decks to the backyard on their own dime, and then we actually give them a performance bonus. We have to approve it. We'll give them a performance bonus if they improve the property. And so now I've got people like making my properties better when I'm not even there. And by the way, Kyle, they also show the property to the next tenant, which is a whole other conversation.
Nice, nice. Well, as you and I talked about, and as a lot of our viewers know, I'm the Airbnb guy. And you just said something there that I also do with Airbnb, which is ask that question, can you do me a favor and just treat this house like it's your own? And it's amazing how people take more ownership when you just ask that simple question, because it's like that mindset shift that they have that, oh yeah, this is not my hotel to trash. This is a person's house that I do need to treat like it's my own. And that's genius. I'm glad that you're asking that. I'm also really intrigued by how you're finding these people. So how's your marketing going? Where are you finding most of your tenants?
Yeah, pretty much everywhere anybody else is. The difference is everybody's competing on price. So it's like everybody's the most expensive thing out there, and I'm the cheapest. I'm the nicest and the cheapest. And most people say, "Oh, you're losing a bunch of money." No, no, no. I'm making it up in spades. When I don't have the turnover, if I have the $2,000 or $3,000 cost of turnover twice a year, and I'm $4,000 or $5,000, and I end up losing $50 or $100 in rent, I've doubled my money. And then if I can keep that tenant there long term, and then if they're not calling the Marriott, room service, come fix my toilet guy all the time, I'm so much money ahead. I've almost doubled my money. And just the mental capacity of having to freaking deal with turnover all the time. Turnover sucks. So one of the things we do is we force turnover. We only take turnover in June, pending like an emergency. So the only day you can leave is in June. That's the opportune time in my marketplace to find new tenants. And so we've got all our turnover happening at the same time. And 99% of the time, it works just like we planned it, because we put a system in place and said, we're not like everybody else. This is how we do it. Here's the benefits to you. Here's how it benefits us. And people love to play the game as long as you tell them how the game's played and give them a motivation to play it.
Hey, Fearless Flipping community, we are taking a quick break from the podcast to talk about Airbnb. For those of you that don't know, I have built much of my residual income around Airbnb, despite a lot of other investors being really excited about long-term renters. I was not. I saw an opportunity with Airbnb to get to my goals faster, to get more cash flow, and to pay off my houses quicker too. So instead of being really happy, like a lot of other investors are, with $200 to $300 of cash flow every single month. I've turned my renters and rentals into over $1,000 on average of cash flow every single month. So if you want to learn more about Airbnb, my systems, where I pick my Airbnbs, how I communicate with guests. Maybe you've already got Airbnb as a business on the side right now, but you want to take it to the next level. I am absolutely here to help you. You can book a free consultation with me about Airbnb. Learn more by booking at fearlessflipping.com/consultation, and you get me for 30 minutes for free. That's right, 30 minutes absolutely free. And that's, once again, fearlessflipping.com/consultation. And I'm looking forward to helping you conquer Airbnb investing. That's awesome. I think I already know the answer to this question, but because you did mention the Robert Kiyosaki method of continuing to add in passive income, but there's a lot of people that are out there that are hearing that 2020 might be a correction, and the people that are out there that are thinking, oh, there's another 2008 coming and all that stuff. Do you sell any of your properties? You adjust accordingly to what you think the market might be doing? Anything along those lines for your long-term rentals?
Yeah, I hope another 2008 happens. That might be scary to some people, but I hope so. Because I would go buy 20 more houses if that happened tomorrow. One of the big mistakes I made in after the 2008 is I didn't buy enough because the market went down and everyone was scared it was going to get worse. And when you see a market correction like that, even if it does get worse, buy when it goes down. And when it gets worse, buy again, double down in that, because everything in the under $500,000 in most marketplaces has far exceeded where it was back in 2008. So I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know what's going to be happening. As far as adjusting, what I do is I adjust for properties that just aren't good rentals. One of the things I've learned over the years is not everything makes a good rental for my model. And there's 1,000 ways to make money in rental real estate. I'm not saying my model's the best. My model works for my lifestyle because I want low maintenance. I don't want phone calls. I don't want to have to get out there or send somebody out there or any of that stuff. It works for my model. But there's lots of other models and ways to do that. As far as, buying and that type of stuff, if it's not a good property, we're going to unload it. So I've unloaded some properties because they just didn't fit my model the way I wanted it, and then turn those into some others. Right now, I'm looking in multiple states right now for some of the bird type deals. I really like the concept of that. I haven't done I shouldn't say. Back when I started, we bird, but we did it differently. You got a subprime loan and you got an 80-20 loan. So you got a bank to give you 80% and a bank to give you 20%. It was a high interest rate, but it was a subprime loan. And most of my properties, I was looking at the money I have into properties that I put into it. It's very little. I bought multiple properties where I put zero down and I actually got the money from banks. So I had a bank that gave me a first and a bank that gave me a second, and they both knew and were happy about it because it was a subprime loan. So it was considered subprime, not because I was a subprime borrower, but because of the non-owner occupied, and there was a first and an 80-20 loan. You really don't find those these days. Unfortunately, they kind of went away. But this whole BRRRR concept, of getting a hard money lender like ourselves to lend you the purchase and the rehab and then refinancing out of it is another way to get in with very little money down.
That's a perfect time to transition here because you just mentioned hard money. You mentioned the BRRRR method, and I myself have used hard money on a flip. I haven't used it on a BRRRR method, but I'm always using either private money or hard money on my deals. So let's talk about Do Hard Money, your business a little bit. How are you, first of all, do us a favor, explain what hard money is to our viewers. And then I would love for you to go into how Do Hard Money is different maybe than others out there.
Yeah, that's a great question. So just to clarify, hard money isn't Guido that's going to come beat you and do all that type of stuff. So lots of people hear the name. They're like, oh no, sounds like a scam, payday loan. That's not the case. And I don't think payday loans are scams, by the way, but people think in that terms. Hard money is basically lending on the hard asset. That's really what it comes down to, a tangible asset. It's lending on the hard asset. So if you go down to Bank of America, Chase, Wells Fargo, I don't know, name your bank, they are going to underwrite you based upon the probability you have as an individual to continue generating income and your likelihood of repaying them. So they're really focused on credit and they're really focused on income. The property, they really don't even care about. They get an appraisal, they'll lend you 97% of whatever that appraisal comes in, and they're good because their risk tolerance is based upon your probability of repaying the debt. When you come to a hard money lender, we say, we don't care if you have a job. We don't care if you have good credit, as long as you don't have like collections or bankruptcy and that type of stuff. But you got a 400 credit score, who cares? As long as you don't have those things that could attach the property or become a problem and that type of stuff, we're going to lend based upon the asset of the property. We're typically want to lend at 70% of the after repaired value of the property. So we have a 30% margin and hold the money for the rehab. We're going to want to distribute that to make sure we have that as additional security. If we have that, we don't really care about you. So that's the sides of the spectrum. And there's even some soft money and there's some hedge funds that are doing some interesting things. But a true hard money lender says, I don't care about you. I only care about the property. And then a traditional lender is going to say, all I care about is your probability of repaying. So that's kind of the definition of hard money.
Perfect. And then with your business, Do Hard Money, there's different terms for everyone. We don't need to go into the terms of everything, but why did you start it? What makes you guys different than other hard money lenders out there?
Yeah, one of the biggest frustrations I had in fix and flipping properties was finding properties and getting a good deal is actually really hard. It takes a lot of work. I often say it's simple but not easy. It's kind of for a few good men, and it's possible. And the success, the principles are the same, and you got to work at it. But like we said earlier, a lot of people give up way too soon. But one of the things is I'd find a good deal, and I would call a private investor and say, I need some money for this deal, and they'd say, oh, you know what? I'm out of money. I would say, I spent all this time trying to find this deal. It's taken me a couple of months. What are you talking about? Or I'd call another guy and he'd say, oh, I watched the news and there was a shooting in that city last night. I'm like, the city's huge. It's like 50
Right.
square miles. Are you kidding me? Like that was on the other side of the city. So they were emotional. So we wanted to be the unbanked. We want to say, if you fit these criteria, we'll do the deal. And if you don't, we won't. So, we've even developed a computer system where you can put it in and it says, yes, this is a deal we'll do as long as, the inspections and those things happen like they're supposed to. The valuation comes in. But it took emotion out of the investing that a lot of private investors, they're either have more money and so they jack up their rates, or then they don't and so they lower them. It's always in flux. So we want to have some consistency on that for people. And then we've really morphed into not just doing hard money, but we've morphed into giving tools, resources, and software. One of the things we're finding right now is one of the difficult things. If you want to use hard money, you got to get a really, really good deal. Just a good deal isn't going to make it. A good deal, there could be a good deal, but by the time you have the cost of expensive hard money and funds and all that type of stuff, it can eat up the profits on that really quickly. So hard money is not for every deal. But you've got to find really good deals. So we've got into software of finding properties and skip tracing and finding values of things and multiple list matching, where you can find someone with motivation and with equity, and you can match the two and then market to them. So we've kind of swam upstream quite a bit to try and give tools and resources to people that are going to need to use hard money because maybe they don't have the best credit and they've got to work harder to find those properties. So we want to give them the help to do that. So that's one of the other big things we're really into right now.
That's really cool because most of the time, from hard money lenders that I've experienced, the biggest, I guess you would say, value that they bring is just having another pair of eyes on that deal, which, especially if you're a brand new person, I always suggest, hey, listen, if you have a mentor who's going to be able to help you, that's great. If you don't, then you need to be using hard money in the beginning to make sure that you're doing the deals right. Because if a bank or an institution like yourself is not going to lend on that deal, that means it's probably not a good deal. So that's usually the only value add, but you have got these systems and these softwares apparently that are helping people to also see whether it's a good deal before actually ever asking you for money. Am I understanding that right?
Yeah, it's exactly right. So we give people the tools and resources and software to go out there, find deals, plug them in, check them out, know what construction costs. We have an analyzer that tells you what local costs are for constructions in the area based upon materials and everything else to really help you get really close to where you're going to be before we start saying, let's go do this deal. Really, two words of warning on that. One, people just give up way too early. We have a lot of people that come in, get excited, but then don't do the follow through. And that's always frustrating to me because it's going to take the first property you look at probably isn't going to be the one you're going to buy. You're probably going to have to look at a few dozen. So words of warning on that. And then secondly, yes, without a question, we are your defensive back, or whatever you want to call it in football, where it's like, hey, we're the last line of defense. And if we tell you we can't do a deal, or any hard money lender says, hey, we can't do this deal and here's why, don't get all pissed off. It's a learning experience. And that's one of the things we're constantly working with customers on, saying is like, hey, we want to give you the money more than you will even want it. Believe me, we've got tons of capital. We've got to keep it working, doing those things. But in the end, we're not going to say yes to a bad deal. And you can't talk us into saying yes to a bad deal. So especially if you're new, getting a good hard money lender that's going to be honest with you. Look, if you're putting 20% down and you've got great credit and you've got $50,000 in the bank, you're going to have an easy time getting that loan, because anybody's going to say, well, I'll take the property and take his down and I'll go after him for the 50 grand. But if you're not in a situation like that, the property is going to get scrutinized a lot more. And so we're going to want to make sure that you're into a good deal, and we're your last line of defense without question.
Absolutely. That's great. So the other side of hard money, like you mentioned, which is really great, and this again is just to educate our listeners and viewers here, is that people are so used to hearing, if I'm going to borrow from the bank, my credit's got to be good. I've got to have a stable job. Why is it so much different with hard money, that it's really, like you said, it's just looking at the hard asset? But how can you as a hard money lender be so confident with someone that has a terrible credit score and maybe has, no job? Wouldn't that scream like, hey, this person probably isn't going to be able to pay us back because they can't even do their own thing in life? Like, does none of that gives any sort of weight to your decision at all?
Yeah, I mean, the reality is yes, it definitely is a higher risk borrower. There's no question on that. But if I'm into the property right, I'm going to fix it up. I'm going to sell it. I'm going to make that profit.
Exactly.
So that's how I'm looking. I'm underwriting it all as a worst case scenario of, if I have to take this property back, what am I going to get out of this deal? So that's how I underwrite those deals, or a hard money lender should underwrite those deals. Now, let me be very clear. I don't want to take anybody's property back, but we do. And we take properties back, and we take properties back for a myriad of reasons, typically because they're not getting the rehab done, not following through with the commitments, those types of things. So execution is huge. Yeah, I think somebody's got a poor credit score probably has a less likelihood of following through on the commitments that they make. But that's not always the case. You can have somebody who's got medical problems, or you can have a general contractor that lost a few properties back in, '08 or whatever the case is. But our whole underwriting is based upon, if you find a good deal, we'll help you. And that can be somebody that's down on their luck or has gone through difficult circumstances. And we underwrite it as if we had to take that property back over as an investor ourselves and get our money out.
Perfect. So if people want to connect with you on the hard money side, or even just use those resources you were talking about, where can they find that?
Yeah, just go over to dohardmoney.com, and you can do a contact us, or you can give us a call, or whatever the case is there. We're only in certain areas and states and that type of stuff, so you can see the states we service. And yeah, we'd love to continue a conversation over there.
Perfect. DoHardMoney.com. We're also going to have that on the show notes. So if you are in your car driving and don't have something to write with, just go to the show notes, which we'll have at the end of this episode. Ryan, we've also got an opportunity here to talk about your book. So I would love to learn, and I would love our listeners and viewers to learn what is the underlying theme, the value that your book is bringing.
Yeah. So the book's How to Get More Money You Can Never Handle, Real Estate Investor's Guide to Funding Deals. You find it on Amazon and those things. The biggest point is it all comes down to finding good deals. You make money when you buy a property. You realize it when you sell it. And if you find the right deals, the money is the easy part. So most people say, I got to go find the money. I got to go find the money. And we can give you the money, frankly. But it really starts with finding that great deal. And as you find the great deals, so it has a lot of strategies on finding those great deals, working with private investors, working with hard money lenders to structure the deal appropriately so everybody's going to be happy. If you do have problems, don't hide them. You don't want to say, oh, my credit's great, and then we pull credit, the week before closing and find out your credit sucks. Tell people. And that's one of the things, and explain it and how to explain it. But I think the biggest emphasis of the book is when you're finding good deals is what makes the whole world go round. And if you're in a bad situation or bad credit or those things, you're going to have to find an even better deal, and you're going to have to outwork other people a little harder until you can fix some of those problems. And it's going to cost you more, but that's all part of the process based upon where your journey's at right now.
That's awesome. So they can also find that book on your website and our show notes, but let's go ahead and give them that link to your site.
Absolutely. So for your listeners, we put a site together, dohardmoney.com/fearless-flipping. So it's just for your guys as listeners. You can download a free e-copy of that book. We usually sell it for 20 or 25 bucks on Amazon and that, but you can get a free copy for your listeners, a gift for them.
Did you hear that, Fearless Flipping community? A free book. So why not get it? Ebook.
Absolutely.
Go get it. So last thing here, as a lot of people, if they're watching on YouTube, are seeing behind you, Income Hacker. Is that all real estate driven, or is that many forms of income?
Yeah, no. So our whole thing is financial freedom, 10 years or less outside the Wall Street casino. So we kind of start with intentional spending. From intentional spending, we get into saying, how do we side hustle, which includes real estate and everything else. Then we talk about how do we build credit. And then we talk about how we can build cash flow. And then we talk about legacy and how we can create legacy. I do the podcast really for my two boys. I have a 7-year-old and I have a 9-year-old and a 7-year-old, soon to be 8-year-old. They're 18 months apart. So I kind of want to diagnose that, but it's basically being intentional about where you want to go and creating those cash flows you want to go from where you're at. So we have everything outside the Wall Street casino.
That's awesome. Well, I know I'm doing 3 things when we get off this call. I'm going to go subscribe to Income Hacker. I'm going to definitely download the ebook, and I'm doing deals all the time here in California. So the next time that I need some hard money, you will be the first person getting a call from me. So Ryan, thank you so much. I hope all of our listeners and viewers feel the same as I do right now, which is using all 3 avenues that you provided. But before we let you go, what's any imparting advice that you might have for anyone that is either new or getting started in this whole real estate investing game?
Yeah, my heart goes out to people that are just getting started, because I think the first deal is the hardest. And my thinking is, lots of people go out and spend a bunch of money and a bunch of time to get a college education. But if you looked at what it would cost you to do a deal and make a mistake, it would be a lot less, especially with the cost of student loans, than going to 4 years of college degree. And I can tell you, I believe you can get an associate's and maybe a bachelor's degree in doing a couple of deals. And so I think people are just too scared to take some of that risk on. And I'm not saying be stupid. I'm saying make calculated risk, because investing is always about calculated risk. I spoke earlier in the show. After the crash, I was scared to buy properties, even though property values went down by 20 or 30% from where I was buying them before. So I had to make a calculated risk on that. One of the great things right now is we know what values went down to in 2008. So if you ever want to look at your worst case scenario, go back and dig and say, what did this house sell in 2008, and what did it rent for in 2008? More than likely, that's a pretty good benchmark for the low to help you evaluate how much risk you may be taking on, if there is a correction or anything else. But I would say make the commitment, decide what strategy you're going to use, and go use it, and be prepared for that to be part of the education. And even if it costs some money or you lose some money or whatever, that's all part of the education and will pay off spades down the road, a lot more than that bachelor's degree that you're still paying student loans on.
Well, and then on the bright side there too, let's say you don't lose any money, you only make money, and then you never had an education to pay for. So that's I mean, I think a lot of people are catching up to that mindset today of education. Unless you're a doctor, lawyer, nurse, need to go to school for training, it's not as necessary. And so you'll find there's a lot of people, especially in the real estate industry, that did not go to school, or did not go to school for what they are currently doing today. So
Well, and I got to put a plug in there, though. They are educated, though. They're just getting, they're educated in other ways. They're not going to get that college degree, which I went and got. I get it. But the education's happening. Like, you've got to put in the time to master what you want to do. It just may not be at a college campus. It may be through your podcast or through courses or learning from mentor, that type of stuff. So I think the education's always necessary. I don't want to downplay education. What I'm saying is that formal education of going to a college campus and putting 4 years in.
Absolutely. Well, Ryan Wright, thank you so much for educating our guests today, and thank you for helping them conquer real estate investing. Show notes on this one, www.fearlessflipping.com/Ryan Wright. Wright is spelled Wright. You can check out all that he's doing. You can see how you can get help from Ryan right there on our show notes. Get a recap of everything that you just listened or watched with here. And again, make sure that you are going down, sharing on either reviews of what is helping you with our podcast, or on comments with the YouTube page. What deals do you have going on right now that you would like us to be able to talk about, so that we can help out some of our other listeners so they can learn from your mistakes or from your victories. So that's it for Fearless Flipping. Let's go out there and conquer real estate investing.